It's April 6th, 2022. I'm watching the evening news with David Muir, the World News Tonight, and there's a reporter, a woman on. They are showing. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, I'm in something called a U.S. United States of America, and that for me is us. Then I see throughout a compilation of confusing pieces that I'm trying to piece together with very little war footage. I mean, enough just to get a sense of it. But when I saw that HBO special about real sports where there's an international army league that Russia hosts, that, or at least they said it, they hosted over there, where they have almost like again, it's an event where people come, but it wasn't associated, I don't think, with the U.S., or at least the flag wasn't there, so that's whatever. So that's a separate piece. So the International Army League is something different than the U.S. I'm like, all right, so, but I have the United States Commander-in-Chief, supposedly, that sits in the White House. But there's some kind of domicile and no domicile struggle, it feels, as like an overture, almost like in the Maestro section, of migrants to refugees to catastrophic whatever, and these mass movements that may not be as honest. So the woman says tonight, she's speaking about something called switchblade drones. I'm like, all right, so now let me get this straight. So now in other countries, they actually have weapons training. Like, they learn how to protect themselves, how to fight, what kind of resources are available, and what things look like. And then there's what I have going on in New York, where I've got, like, looks like past refugees. I can't even verify that the people here are migrants because I just can't. I have no access to any kind of system to verify them all. But they don't look North American, and they don't look like the paper system, and they don't look like Canada, and they don't look like the rock wall. So I'm like, that's confusing. And then I'm sitting here and going, so she's saying that there's some kind of military exchange program where the U.S., the us, is training Ukrainians who kind of look like us, some of them, in a military exchange program for some of these weapons. And then they'll go back, but it's a foreign military exchange, FME. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I was like, so now, I mean, if this is indicative of honorable work and honorable time served, why was I not able to gain access to something that looked like it was in this and knew what it was doing to have a place in the world? Why was this level of service denied? Whatever this is, I don't even know what this is called. They don't say here. There's no entry to Army, Navy, air, land, or sea, as far as I can gather. Lou wasn't. I wasn't. Although we'll keep Lou off of the agenda. for myself. I'm an only child. I was the one who was disadvantaged in the field. So there's no access to even learn what honorable work talks like or sounds like or whatever. I'm just left here in some domicile look-alike contest that I qualify for, but a bunch of no domicile whatever trying to take over, and nobody talking about the struggle, or nobody sending help, or nobody even telling the story correctly. It's a little confusing. So I'm like, because again, I don't know how to use a gun. I've never held a gun. I certainly don't know about drones. I'm like, there's not even a catalog. I wouldn't even know vocabulary. I mean, not that I want to like compete with the man who's the 7, but on this side of like so how was I supposed to ever get by? I'm in an atmosphere, meaning like astrological, cosmological, bariatric pressure with title, at high doctorate, with having ecological and a different tier, a different TIER of issues, but with no hand to hold, no information, not even like enough information to ask to see what I need. Just shut out and shut in for some reason. It looks like a house arrest, but it gets confusing. Because if they stole from the data torrent of a possibility of way in the future, how do you put somebody on house arrest and gather around them to have a pre-dawn fight over no domicile? I'm just curious for those that know what the hell that I'm talking about. So this is what she says.
Feature so that if the human operator spots civilians in the area as they guide the drone, they can abort the attack.
Martha Raddatz with us live from Washington tonight. And Martha, the U.S. military, and this is interesting, has been training Ukrainian soldiers who had been here in the U.S. before this invasion began on how to use these drones.
Exactly, David. These drones do require training, but there are Ukrainians already in the U.S. on a foreign military exchange program, so they can go back to Ukraine and operate those drones or train others. And this is exactly the kind of equipment, plus those javelins and stingers, that the administration believes is truly making a difference. David?
Now, who is this administration? And why is it that, there's no class at all? Like, there's been no classes. I've gone to New York State run elementary school, middle school, and some form of high school, which is not like whatever. But there's been no introduction of anything along those lines. There's been no access to being able to get to those lines. However, I do hear of Black and brown people being able to access it from inside the United States of North America. So that's curious. How did that happen? Just curious. And also, like, with this foreign military exchange, who's in charge of that? If that's what they're here hiding under in the migrant category, it's still a domicile issue. And currently, they're not taking responsibility for the purposeful, like, eradication of my kind. I mean, we clearly have domicile by land, by rock, by paper. And yet there's some kind of overture that's going on that's not spoken of ever. And arms training, weapons training, vocational of anything has been withheld, of honorable service. So one can't even find an honorable service spouse, especially if that's what they're built and bred for. Even like withdrawing them out of the service industry, still wears, again, like it, I mean, I hate to use the animal term, but it is. So now that gets confusing between the big bad wolf somewhere in Goldilocks, somewhere in, there's a Miss Piggy version of the big bad wolf's hurt feelings, although it was two cousins and we both couldn't figure it out because I liked my nose, but whatever. And I wasn't trying, but whatever. In Nightingale and Nightgown. Just saying. So it's just really confusing with how to ever regain footing or ever be able to, I mean, like, I'm being, just while I sleep, the pressure on my back and my hip is so horrible and so everything, I mean, it's just off. There are times where I'll stand in the house and it feels almost vertigo-like, that you actually have to catch a wall. I mean, it's almost like being on a ship, like out to sea in like one of the smaller, like whatever boats. But that rock, because sometimes you have to catch your balance. At times, even though it's a standstill, there's a tectonic shift of some sort that goes on, whether it be from ground or from air or from sonic, like, frequency that disengages structure and stability. It's something, and it throws off the movement, and then it pains the anatomy. It's much more serious in nature and in consequence than material weaponry. But these are advancements that have been taken based on just utter neglect of the situation and the area. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.